All right, the recording is now started to the cloud. And this is the September 23rd, 2021 Crossplane community meeting. We will start with our milestones and upcoming releases and progress on the core Crossplane project, and then we'll shift over to providers and the progress that's being made there. At any point in those, everybody from the community is quite invited to share your opinions, share your perspectives, or needs that you have for upcoming releases as well too. So this is always a good place to put in a plug for what you want to see out of the project. So I think this was the day after the last community release, the last community meeting. We did a 1.4.1 patch release, which smoothed over an issue with migrating or upgrading from previous releases to 1.4. So that is out, and that is the latest Crossplane release. That is the recommended one to be running and to be upgrading to if you're coming from previous releases. We did talk about that a little bit in the last community meeting too, and I think it came out the day after. So the next minor release we're tracking towards is the V1.5. The expected release date is a little bit over a month from now on our typical cadence. So October 26th is around when we are shooting for doing the release for 1.5. So we can take a quick dive into the roadmap. We've kind of talked about the roadmap, and this is a kind of a broader perspective, longer term view on upcoming Crossplane features that are not tied to any particular release. I don't know if there's big updates here to mention from the last community meeting versus what we're going to be focusing on in 1.5. So if anybody wants to mention anything big that's different on the roadmap, they can do so now, but otherwise we can just dive into 1.5. So let's do that then. Nick, the work that you would be doing for scalability and such, do you want to be tracking that on the 1.5 specific board as well too?
Not really. No, if I added it, that was unintentional.
No, it's only on the roadmap board. So I was asking if you wanted to put it on 1.5 also.
No, my general philosophy toward this is that I don't think we should be putting anything on the 1.5 board until there's like a concrete deliverable that is a feature or thing that will ship with 1.5. So I imagine that potentially, I'm about to take 2 weeks vacation, so that might affect this, but potentially, like if scale testing was like, oh, we did some scale testing, we found out we need to fix knob X or whatever, then like the issue for fix knob X, I would put in 1.5 because that will ship with 1.5. But the fact that I did a bunch of scale testing isn't a feature of 1.5, or at least, people, I don't think people are looking to be like, sweet, Nick did some scale testing during this release. It doesn't, impact them that much.
Cool. Yep, that makes sense, Nick. Okay, cool. And then Muaf, is there any updates on some of the ACK pipeline integrations or anything that's worth mentioning today?
No, not really. We haven't been able to focus on that in the last 2 weeks.
Got it. All right, let's move on into the things we are focusing on. I think a lot of the TerraJet related stuff is not tracked in this board, and I'm wondering if Matthias or anybody has an opinion on, now that from what I've seen with the new beta for GitHub projects, that you can track items across organizations. Is that maybe a good idea here, Matthias, do you think, to be able to, I don't know if we have to opt in for that for the Crossplane organization, but then be able to, track TerraJet related stuff on this board as well, or it's not really tied to the 1.5 release, so it's kind of another ancillary area?
So the answer is yes. You need to Crossplane. The Crossplane org needs to have access. So we need to sign up for the beta, GitHub beta. From what I'm seeing, it's not enabled at this point. So let's sign up for the beta first, and then we can discuss whether it's worthwhile we're doing this internally in Upbound, and I like it a lot because it's for the cross repository management, but also for fields, and then the capabilities of slicing and dicing by these fields, other groupings and filtering. But let's postpone this, I would say, until we have access, and then we can give it a try.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Does anybody want to have an update for 1.5 for things on this board? We'll get into TerraJet stuff later on, but anything specific for 1.5 that needs to be surfaced here within this meeting? Okay.
Oh,
right.
wait, sorry.
Hey, Jillian.
Hey guys, sorry, I was multitasking and
Hey.
didn't pay attention, and so I may have missed this. So 1.4, you guys released a composition revision. And
Yes.
we created, I love it, by the way, we've been waiting for this. We created an issue, I believe, Nick, you may have commented on it, regarding enhancements that we'd like to see to the composition revision in order for it to actually work at scale for multiple clusters.
Yeah, Nick, do you remember that issue?
Yes, I do. Yep. So there was a, if I recall correctly, the theme was that revisions are being created across multiple clusters, and revisions have, at the moment, non-deterministic names.
Right.
And you would like to be able to write a configuration that will push the same revision out to, or the where you could sort of basically ask a claim or XR to use the same revision across any cluster. And even if we were to change the names from revision random strings to revision 0, revision 1, etc., that would not have coordination across clusters. So there was a proposal to add versioning, basically, to revision semantic versioning, if I remember from a loop.
Yes.
Yep. And is that your, just the context here is where you're sort of proposing doing this in 1.5?
That would be great.
I'm a little on the fence about it, to be completely honest.
Okay.
Not the problem in general. I see the problem in general. And this is not a very
Simple.
yeah, just how we fix it is what I'd like to think a little bit about.
Okay.
To be completely honest, like an OOP suggestion of semantic versioning for these revisions is not, probably would work. It's just, I have never seen an API reference be semantically versioned in Kubernetes before. So I'm wondering if there's a more idiomatic way to do it or something like that.
Right.
It probably wouldn't be super hard to implement. Basically, I just kind of want more feedback from the community, more use cases on this. So I'm definitely not saying it won't get done ever. I would love to, like, so far we only have Guidewire asking for this feature, right? So
Sure. No, I totally get it.
Well, that means a lot. Like, it would be awesome to get like 1 or 2 other customers on this. It could just because it's community members on it. So could just because it's super early and you're getting way out there ahead of other folks. So definitely sort of keen to hear more from community members as to whether this is a problem for you, whether you would like it solved, how you would like it solved, etc., etc.
It totally makes sense. I think we're on the push, right, to get things fully adopted and moving ourselves from POC to really MVP and getting our early adopters. And you guys know revision is necessary for RDS.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Yeah, thanks for voicing that, Jillian. That's definitely helpful to hear that feedback and know that that's something that is a priority. So, all right. Other notes or things to bring up for 1.5 or direction here for core crossplane before we move on to providers and TerraJet and things like that.
I'm in the process of, I didn't get to it before this meeting, but I'm gonna drop that documentation PR in the 1.5 release, which again is something that's kind of questionably related to 1.5, given that it was backported to 1.4, but I feel like it does fall along the maybe lines of something we'd put in the 1.5 release notes, that there was a documentation.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
I definitely think so. Definitely think so. All right. let's head on over to providers and the initiatives there around increasing provider coverage. So the first item there is to get an update on the TerraJet project. So Muaf or Matthias, do you want to give an update on that high level here?
Yeah, sure thing. So there are a couple of updates. One is we have got the tech preview releases for AWS and Azure TF providers, and everyone is welcome to play with them and test them out. Hopefully, in the next sprint, we will release alpha version of them with more XRM features implemented. And in the last 2 weeks, we have done some couple of scale tests regarding both CRDs, because there are just hundreds of CRDs that come with TerraJet providers. There are some great findings that Alper put in the issue about how we can make a patch server work with that many CRDs. And there is also another scale test related to how many CR instances TerraJet common controller could actually reconcile in acceptable time frames, so that we know where we are and we have a baseline performance metric, and then the more we do enhancements on the controller and all the logic, we can measure against that baseline. Other than that, we have implemented a few more XRM features. One is references, which is on the way. Hassan is working on getting the configuration from user in a nice way, regarding which fields are references and that kind of has some effects on other stuff as well, how we get resource specific configuration from provider developers. So that is ongoing in a PR. And there is this external name annotation. So in Terraform, there is a similar notion to our external name called ID, but it's it is not an input. It is always output of the apply operation, and then you can use it to import a resource, but it's just you cannot really give an ID and expect it to be used as the name of the resource. Google Network name would just be a field on the parameters, which is not how we do it in XLM. We remove actual the name fields from the spec, and we expect external name annotation to be both input and output. So in order to make it work with underlying Terraform machinery, we implemented a new mechanism for provider developers to say hey, these are the parameters that are determined by the external name. For example, right now for Google Network, if user gives the correct information, we remove the name field from schema, and then once we start to reconcile, we take the external name and put it to the base HCL configuration. So this way we get the parity with XLM in terms of external name behavior. And the third thing is TF state annotation. So the TF state file is something that can have sensitive information, and it's also big to store in annotation, and it's just not how we do it in other resources. And we, in the original design, we wanted to not have that file to be stored anywhere, like annotation or secret or file system. So with the change, the PRI open today, we are able to get rid of that annotation. And right now, we reproduce a TF state from spec status and external name, and then run a Terraform refresh to get the current state of the world, and then run the plan to see diff and run all other operations. So we are able to not have any external stuff that we would put the TF state to, which addresses some of concerns in the community users. So these are what we've been working on in the last 2 weeks. In the next 2 weeks, we will mostly be busy with making it more like raising the quality bar with additional tests. And there are a few decisions that we made in the beginning that we want to now revisit, because they were there for just to de-risk the whole implementation and see what works and what doesn't. So now in this sprint, we will revisit some of those to simplify the flows and basically apply the learnings that we've got along the way, and add unit tests and other tests that we want. And additionally in the, I think I haven't added it here. We are, yeah, I'll just add another line there, in the alpha release of Azure and AWS, we will be reducing number of CRDs to some amount that we can add the configuration objects one by one. For example, 50 CRDs that are highly requested in Azure but doesn't exist in native Azure provider. So we will add those, but also add the all external name configuration references and everything that we implement at that point. And the alpha release will contain CRDs that are fully XM compliant, hopefully. And additionally, in the next sprint, I hope we will be able to get the connection details work as expected. Right now, we are not able to publish connection details. It just ends up in the observational parameters. So we would like to address that as well in the next sprint. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If Hassan and Alper or Matthias want to add anything else.
Maybe one.
Go ahead,
Please.
Hassan, go ahead.
Okay, mine's short. One point to add to the connection details thing. I think one of the obstacle was how we would get the configuration from users. And since we are tackling that in the scope of providing references and external name, I believe figuring out or getting which fields would go to the connection details could be simpler. So I hope that would be solved sooner than the end of next sprint.
Yeah, all I wanted to add is just a shout out to the community, and we will do this during the sprint next 2 weeks again. If once we've have the alpha release out, is getting us feedback for the existing providers for the current state of provider TF AWS and provider TF Azure. Right, we've started this. It has some core functionality, and as Mubarak explained, the functionality XRM features are going to be greatly enhanced. We're going to create more CRDs, so it's a great time to jump in and provide feedback. So shout out, please, have a look at them.
Yeah, thanks for the updates on all that progress there, and the next focus over the next couple of weeks here of getting those for the Azure and AWS providers to an alpha level here. That's super exciting to see all that come together. Since the last community meeting, we did a provider GCP release for V0.18, and then also the new provider GCP beta that has beta features from upstream, or sorry, from the provider services from GCP itself. Hassan did a lot of work there to author a migration guide. So if you're using an older version of provider GCP and you want to start using beta features of a GCP itself, then there's a migration guide to follow step by step to make sure that migration is smooth there. Hassan, did you have anything else you wanted to add more specific on that topic?
No, nothing really. You explained very well.
Awesome. And thanks for that effort there. Dan on the upfront thinking through some of that and communicating to the community, and then Hassan working through the issues there and getting a good migration guide written up as well too. So provider AWS, want to dive into some updates there, Aaron or Moaf?
Yeah. Yeah, so right now there isn't a huge list of updates in the in this document about new PRs and stuff, but I'm happy to say that in the next 2 weeks we will be actively working on provider AWS, providing feedback for PRs and issues, me and Aaron, 1 week me and 1 week him. So yeah, I think our priority will be merging new resource PRs, and my priority specifically will be the AWS SDK v2 update PR, which will unblock some of the work in EKS APIs.
Yeah, great. I'm excited to do the community focus, community push on AWS, similar to what we've done for GCP and Azure recently, which I think was pretty successful. All right, Hassan, updates on, or Aaron, anything else to add on AWS?
No, I was pretty much out all last week, so I'll be diving back in on the community push, but there's no updates since our last meeting.
Got it. So diving in from your new fabulous West Coast home.
Ooh.
Nice. All right, and then Hassan, provider GCP updates.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the biggest update is we did a release after 4 months. So I think it is a long-awaited release. So this is the #1 thing. And also, while working on this release, we spent some time to fix some bugs to include them in the release. So there are, I think, top 4 bugs I listed here, which is one was auto resizing Cloud SQL is handled, and there was an issue with again Cloud SQL when a private network provided. Actually, the funny thing is, it is just a format of a field how you would need to provide, and unfortunately, if you didn't provide the format, the field in the expected format, you got no feedback. That is the problem. So it was open as a bug for a long time. So after investigating, we provided a fix for that as well. And also Nick opened the PR for service account key to get it deleted once the service account is deleted. And yeah, there is also another issue which was causing GKE node pools to get updated periodically, and it is again a similar issue with the one that I mentioned. It is just a wrong format. The node pool image should be in a capital case, but Google accepts it as lowercase as well, but converts it to capital case on the server side. So Crossplane thinks that there is an there is an update required, etc. So that was also one of the bugs included. Another update, not inside provider GCP, but related, in provider Helm and in provider Kubernetes, we could not use GKE after 1.18, and because GKE deprecated the basic authentication and provider Helm does not support that. And a big shout out to Aaron to kicking this PR off, and then Nick finalized and we merged it in provider Helm, so you can use with any new version of GKE. And the PR for provider Kubernetes is also open, and thanks Nick for that. Yeah, that's all from provider GCP side.
Awesome, Hassan. And all these mentioned, these merged PRs here that are listed, all those got included into the 0.18 release. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
I tried to do so, yeah.
Great. Okay, and Alper, updates for Azure.
Yeah, hello. So not many updates. This week was the community push for provider Azure. And, you know, we have been working, reviewing some old PRs. So if we can get those PRs, you know, merged, we can also make a new release maybe in the near future.
Yeah, and I think that definitely was, you saw the benefits of a community-focused community push on getting a lot of those PRs, attention and getting feedback on them. So we're getting a lot of them closer to being merged and adding new support, adding fixes and stuff. So I think that was definitely really useful over the past couple of weeks. Right. Any other notes for providers or milestones or anything before we move to the community section? All right. Yeah, let's move on down there then. So in terms of content updates, a ton of updates as usual here. There's a whole bunch of new videos that Victor has been giving, talks and videos here. So those are all linked. I don't think Victor's on the call this week, but these are all links to the YouTube videos are all linked right here in the agenda document. So you can check those out and see some of the new topics that Victor's been working on. We did get a write-up in Forbes magazine. It's not really a magazine, I guess it's online, but Forbes, we got a write-up there, which is quite interesting. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. So that's some good content. A community member also did a intro talk to about Crossplane recently that is linked here as well too. So that's available right there. And then there's an upcoming webinar as well too with the Straya folks about a collaboration with Crossplane and Open Policy Agent. It's at the end of the month here in about 1 week, and there's a link to register there if anybody's interested in checking that out. Cool. So a lot of interesting content, always opportunities for education and learning more about Crossplane and some of the scenarios and use cases there. Good stuff. And so this CNCF incubation, I think this will be the last week that this agenda item will be on here, because we officially did pass the vote for the Technical Oversight Committee in the CNCF. There has been, the announcements has been made, etc. So we are officially an incubation project. And we start getting some benefits now with the CNCF for greater press and marketing, getting more talks, etc. at upcoming KubeCons. So we have a KubeCon China Meet the Maintainers maintainer track talk now as well too that we weren't able to get at previous KubeCons. So a lot of benefits coming out of that. A whole lot of attention on the project as well too. A lot of the project statistics have gone significantly up in the past week or so since we announced. So if you want to read more about the incubation milestone and some of the project progress, etc., we wrote up a blog post here that's linked in the agenda document on blog.crossplane.io, and gives some more details on that and everything that's been going on recently. So this is a really big milestone for the Crossplane project to reach. We worked on this for a number of months to get to this point. And so really happy to be able to put that behind us and have this accomplishment there and be a full incubating project with the CNCF. And then the next milestone there will be full graduation. I'm not going to make any commitment or announcement on timeline for that, since it is quite a rigorous process as well. But yep, we are an incubating project, and thanks to everybody in the community for the work on getting the project to this point of maturity, and we'll just keep going from here. All right. Okay, so then I really like the concept still of this agenda item here, but we haven't been quite putting items in there. But the intent here is there's a lot of interesting conversations on Slack, a lot of interesting issues raised. Investigations into bugs and performance and all sorts of cool stuff there. So does anybody have any sort of interesting conversations from the community or things of interest to bring up here in this forum? Everybody's been heads down implementing and delivering. All right. Yeah, maybe a link here to some of the performance stuff that you had looked into out there might be interesting for the community as well too. If you want to drop a link here to some of your write-ups on the performance stuff, I thought that was quite interesting and a bit of a illuminating deep dive into control plane, API server, etcd performance and stuff like that. So that's probably an interesting topic to maybe just link here, and the folks can dive into that on their time too.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought that was an especially good effort and investigation. So thanks for doing that out there.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any PRs or anything that folks want to bring up? I don't see anything else on the agenda document here. So anything of interest or a note that needs to be brought up in the community today? Going once. All right, okay, so that's everything on the agenda. Sounds like folks don't have more things to bring up. So I think we can go ahead and adjourn for the week then.
Thanks, Jared.
All righty, thanks everybody. Good to see y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.